Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Good morning to who do we have here so far? We've got Jim Turner, Chris Ford, Gary Muirhead, and our friend Mick is here as well. We've got Instagram tuning in. Ian Flowerdew just joined us over there. Good morning to you one and all. Well. Lou Carney's just joined us as well. Haven't seen Lou for a while. Good morning, Lou. I hope you're fitting well. Morning, guys and gals. I think you are the only gal at the moment, although it's hard to tell over on Instagram because I'm only dealing with the kind of you made up names, URLs and stuff. But yeah, good morning, Lou. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What a day yesterday proved to be. Thanks for our petition. Didcot is back in the news headlines. Wish it was out of the news headlines on a permanent basis, but it's back in the news headlines. I was interviewed by two different BBC radio channels yesterday, and I'm going to be playing one of those interviews at the end of the show. I also pre-recorded an interview on ITV Meridian, but that's outside my region, so I don't suppose I'll ever get to see that. If anybody is in the ITV Meridian area, it may have been on the evening news last night. I honestly don't know. But as you will hear when I play the BBC radio interview, at the end of the show, the daughter of one of the men killed, Sadie Cresswell, says that it's vital that we keep the media spotlight on this accident and the investigation, and we're certainly doing that. So thank you very much indeed for all of those that have given the backing to the petition so far, and just keep it rolling. That's all we can do. Mark White has just joined us. Morning, Mark. And Jim Turner saying, all good here. The sun is out. Just everything lined up for submitting the planning application for our new house. My fingers are crossed here as well. Fingers crossed it will be submitted by Friday. My fingers are crossed for you, Jim. And I shall keep them crossed while I'm crossing the Atlantic, heading off to Las Vegas over the weekend. On a different subject, my morning monologue today, and I'd kind of like to get your thoughts on all this. My morning monologue today is going to be on the subject of the pros and cons of brand loyalty. Now, in my work and in my vaguely private life, I'm loyal to a couple of brands. This show is broadcast on an Apple computer. I've got an iPhone, an Apple Watch, and an iPad. For work, I'm also a fan of the DJI brands. Every drone we've ever had, DJI, and they also make our main set of microphones. I've got Elgato products all over my desk. There's a light up there. There's a Stream Deck down here. There's other bits and pieces. So I'm very loyal to certain brands. Although, having said that, I am going to be trying out some new microphones over in Las Vegas, but that's a whole other story. But is it possible? Is it possible to be loyal to a single brand of construction or demolition equipment? And is it wise to do so? That's what I'd like to know. The bearded plant operator, good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much indeed for joining us over on Instagram. Yes, let's have a look. Mick says, don't care what area you was on, you've done a bloody good job getting it out in the open. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mick. Much appreciated. Good luck, Jim. Yeah, absolutely. Are you a smooth operator? Play the game, get an insulated mug, feel 3/4 full. Oh, right, okay. Here's a game for you operators to play. Play the game. Get an insulated mug. Fill 3/4 full with steaming hot tea or coffee. Place it between your thighs. I'm going to advise you against this. Carry on operating. If you're a smooth operator, you will enjoy a warm drink after 10 minutes. However, if you're not, stewed plums, I think is the expression. And yes, going back, well, pros and cons of brand loyalty. Yes, steel wrist for me, of course. That's not a hard one, though, is it? Because, you know, if you're going to use a tilty or a quick coupler or something like that, that's you're with that full time. Whereas the carrier machine, you know, the excavator, the wheel loader, the skid steer, whatever it might be, would you necessarily stick with a single brand? We'll come back to all of that at the very end of the show. Speaking of the show, should we get it underway? I'm going to roll the intro in just a second. I'm going to tell you what the question of the day is, and then we're going to get this show properly on the road. Our man Mick has just said about Chris's game with the mug of hot tea between your legs. Chris, better in the cold weather, keep the nuts warm. I'm not sure I'd want them that warm, to be perfectly honest. I do say, need to say a very quick good morning and a get well soon to our friend Peter McKenna. Good morning from Royal Preston Hospital. He's back there again. Peter, get well soon. If it were possible to hand you a grape or a bunch of grapes over the interwebs, I would be doing that right now, but I haven't actually figured out that kind of technology yet. You've seen the question of the day, so it is. What is it? It is Tuesday the 17th of September. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, the Lugong loader evolution continues. Manu doubles up with twin power. Zoom line excavated in Tibet. Tibet. Have we ever featured anything from Tibet before? We're about to. Look forward to it. And the BBC has helped shine a light back on Didcot Plus, as I've already keyed in. My morning monologue today, we'll be discussing the pros and cons of brand loyalty and whether it's possible or wise to put all your equipment eggs into a single basket. But before we get to all that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine. So let me fire this up. Now, I should probably save this till the end of the show when I'm talking about it, but I'm going to show it to you now. Jim Turner just said, with brand loyalty should also come a heavy reduction in purchase prices. It's best advertising a company can get. Guaranteed future sales as machines get replaced. See, this is why I'm selling it as a pros and cons. There is that, and you would like to think that you will get preferential purchase price, preferential or priority on parts and service and everything else. But is there a possibility that if you stick with a single brand, it can stagnate? Stagnate, I think, is the word. But people just become complacent. Oh, it's a guaranteed deal. Well, guaranteed deal. We don't need to try too hard. I think it's a double-edged sword. We'll be coming back to that. Also going to come back to the question of the day in just a moment, but I do need to show you today's mystery machine, and it looks like this. There we are. A piece of cab and a little bit of wing mirror. Can anybody figure out what that is? Can't really give you any clues because you shouldn't really need them. All I would say is I am going to need a specific model number. The way that this company numbers their models is kind of unique, and I need the right answer. And I can tell you that Peter McKenna, tucked up in his hospital bed, says JCB Lodal. It is not. And our man, bearded plant operator, reckons it's a JCB Fast Track. It's not one of those either. Chris Ford going for the JCB 165. I can tell you quite I'll save you all the hassle. It's not actually a JCB of any description. Not a JCB of any description. I'll come back to this at the end, but there we are. Gary Muirhead says, I don't think it's good to put all your eggs in one basket with brand loyalty. As you'll hear when we get to it, it's one of those things that cuts both ways. And I'll mention it when we get there, but there are companies that have done that very, very well, stuck to a single brand and have succeeded as a result. We shall come back to it. So let me press on. We'll come back to the mystery machine a little bit later on, but we need to get the show a begin. Now, I'll tell you now, the first three of our videos today are all quite short because the one at the end, which is the BBC interview on Didcot, is about 10 minutes. So I've chosen some nice, snappy videos to play you in advance of that, and then we'll do the longer one at the end. Just have a quick look at the... that's narrowed it down then. No, not really. Not really. I'll tell you what, while we're here, Mystery Machine, there's a bit more. Does that help anyone at all? All we know so far is it's got a cab, it's got a wing mirror, and it's got a tyre. And it's not a JCB. It's all I can tell you at this point in time. So, our first film features those fine folks at Lugong. I think Lugong over here is still seen as a bit of a novelty, a bit of a newcomer, a bit of a Johnny-come lately. But they've been making wheel loaders for quite some time. I mean, boy, oh boy, have they been through an evolution. Yeah, 66 years now they've been doing that. Pretty good, pretty good. That's the new T-Series wheel loader. Our friend Bearded Plant Operator reckons that our mystery machine could be Volvo L60H. It could be, but it's not. Gary Muirhead also reckons, where we are, reckons it could be a Sany STH 1056A. It's not one of those either. Just going back to all things about brand loyalty. I don't think you'd get stagnation, as all the other manufacturers will be falling over themselves to offer you a better deal. There can't be many folk that buy machines without checking out the prices and specs of equivalent brands of machines. I think you're right, but I do wonder about that. You know, if you're a company that's built your reputation and you are known as, you know, the company that does the Komatsu excavators or the JCB backhoe loaders or whatever it might be, I would imagine that you must get to a point where you that's kind of your default. You know, we need a new backhoe loader. Let's ring JCB again. I wonder about that. Let's have a look. Going back to the mystery machine. Chris Ford reckons it could be a CAT 906 loader. It's not one of those. Peter McKenna reckons an XEMG LW300K. Very specific, but also very wrong. The stick steer on the armrest is fantastic, says Gary Muirhead. Going back to the T-Series wheel loader. I think you probably got Gary Major and his team to thank for that. So let me show you a bit more of the mystery machine. There you are. Oh, look. That's distinctive. It has a bucket. It has a bucket at the sharp end. Yeah, I'm going to take that away for the time being because we'll come back to that in just a moment. We need a bit of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Mystery machine again. Gary Muirhead going with the Volvo L90H. It's not a Volvo. Not a Volvo. Not a Volvo. Not a JCB. Need to get back where I started from. We've all heard of diesel power, electric power, hydrogen power. But what about twin power? Well, man, you reckon they've got it. Here we go. Pretty specialist use case scenario, but twin power. I've just realised I haven't actually reminded you of the question of the day, although we've gotten some answers in on it. So let me play you the question of the day, because oddly enough, Jim Turner and I are in complete agreement. So back after this. Yeah, our question of the day comes from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead, and his question is this: who do you look up to in life and why? Couple of things here. First of all, my answer to this a few years ago would have been my dad. His work ethic, his moral values, particularly the way he treated women. All things I aspired to, but he's not here anymore. I also used to look up to people who were somehow sort of heroic or iconic. Muhammad Ali, Bobby Moore, just a few examples. Nowadays, and this is something that I apparently have in common with Jim Turner, I find myself admiring little bits of people's characters. I look up to my mate and occasional co-author John Woodward for his ability to socialise with pretty much anyone. Our own Gary Muirhead for his generosity and openness. Lord Bamford at JCB, just for his single-minded vision. I've never worked for JCB. He may be an absolute tyrant, but you have to say he has his eye on the prize and nothing gets in his way. Love that about the guy. Bill Tucker. Bill Tucker says, God. Well, Bill, I don't know where in the world you are. If that gets you through your day, I'm not a believer, but if that gets you through your day, that sounds like a well. Listen, if you're going to look up to anyone, God would be a pretty good starting point, wouldn't he? Peter McKenna says, my dad now, even now he's died. Yeah, as I say, I mean, there are little bits of my dad, obviously, genetically, but also just by osmosis, I guess. And I do find myself, every once in a while saying a certain thing or acting in a certain way and thinking, yeah, I know exactly where I got that from. So, yes, that's the question of the day. Who in life do you look up to? Including, not exclusively, but including God. Bill Tucker, thank you very much indeed for being here. Don't know where you're watching from. Can I take a stab at America? Somewhere in the States. I'm going with Bill Tucker being an American. Based on nothing at all. That's our mystery machine. We already know it's not a Volvo, so Chris Ford is going for the Cat 920. It is not. Peter McKenna reckons Hyundai or Hyundai HL 730. It's not one of those either. Gary reckons John Deere 244 P tier. No, it's not one of those. So no, it's none of those things. Let me show you a smidge more. There you are. Oh yes, nothing like an articulation point to sort the wheat from the doesn't mean anything at all. Going back to all things, yes, I did mention the fact that Jim and I were of one mind. There you are. Question of the day, who do you look up to? No one really. There's little bits from lots of people that are admirable, but no particular person springs to mind. And that's where I am. I think, I was, when you're growing up, I think you're looking for that sort of beacon of, I need to be more like that person. I mean, frankly, I was never going to be much like Muhammad Ali. I was never good enough at football to be Bobby Moore, but I kind of aspired to, their presence and everything else. Now it's these little snippets of people, as I say, Gary's generosity. John Woodward, for those of you that don't know, can walk into a room of 1,000 strangers and he'll have a conversation free and easy with every single bugger in there. He's just got an absolute knack, and I do admire that. Peter McKenna says, Robin Williams was a good advocate for mental health. If only we'd listened to him. Maybe we might have realised that the guy was actually struggling a bit. Terrible loss. Not just as a comedian, although obviously an absolutely top-notch comedian, but also a fantastic actor as well, which we only found out later in life. But that's the way it rolls, I'm afraid, people. Yes, we are off to Tibet in a second. I don't think we've ever been there before. Right back after this. I'll come back to all things Tibet and Tibetan in just a second. That is our mystery machine. Chris Ford has had another guess, reckons it could be a John Deere 324P. It's not. Would you like a bit more? Not sure that helps at all. Gary Muirhead is going for the Cat 907. I can tell you, not a Cat, not a Volvo, not a JCB, and I'll go even further. It's not a John Deere either. That would have come through while I was saying it was not a Cat. So it's definitely not a 903D. Anybody's got any guesses? Could I get the 3 points? Could I get the 3 points and put the wind up Dan Cullen, who I don't think I've seen so far today? Not sure what he's up to today. Yes, Tibet. We were talking about Tibet. I flew over it once on my way to Japan. Waved, just in case the Dalai Lama. I was going to say the Dalai Lama was looking up. Dalai Lama doesn't live in Tibet, does he? Because he's not welcome there anymore, thanks to our friends, the Chinese. But yes, we're going to Tibet for the first time to look at a zoomline excavator in a copper mine. So on the subject of copper mine, a copper load of this. Zoomline in Tibet. Tibet looks lovely, doesn't it? I'd like to go there. Yeah, I'd like to go milk a yak. Yaks are in Tibet, right? Can't say I'm an expert. Mystery Machine. Back to that. I'll tell you, our final film is actually 10 minutes long. So nobody's got it yet, but I will tell you that. Let's have a look. Gary Muirhead reckons it could be a JCB 406. Not one of those at all. Peter McKenna is going for the Volvo L25. He also goes for the L30B. It is not a Volvo. It is not a JCB. Lou Carney says, loving the tunes on the Zoomline video. Yes. Not sure if that was actually Tibetan music, but listen, if it is, Tibet, you rock. Because I'm sure most of Tibet are watching as we speak. Gary Muirhead, definitely not a JCB 403, because it's not a JCB of any description. Here's a bit more. There you are. Now, I have to say, I do actually think that is quite distinctive. Would I necessarily get it from that? Possibly not, but I can't. That's a familiar bit of branding to me, that is. So if anybody's got any answers on that, would love to hear from you. We'll take that away for just a moment, because I need to play
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
This show is nothing if it's not an education. According to to Jim Turner, rather, pretty sure yak milk is yellow because of the high fat content. On that basis, my milk, please don't milk me, but my milk would probably be yellow as well. High fat content. Thank you for that, Jim. Peter McKenna reckons our mystery machine could be a Sany SW105. It isn't. Gary Muirhead is going for Komatsu WA70-7. It's not. It's not a Komatsu. It's not a Sany. It's not a Volvo. Not a Cat. Not a JCB. Yeah, that is why they call it a mystery machine, because it's a mystery. So I can show you just one frame more, I think, which is that. Does that help anyone? Keep the guesses coming in. You've got plenty of time because, as I say, our last film of the day is 10 minutes long. And I warn you in advance, if you've been watching me on LinkedIn, you've probably already seen it. And I have to say, watching this is going to be as boring as anything. This is going to be like watching paint dry, because it's a still image, just a waveform on it. This is actually, I'm going to play you the audio from a BBC radio interview that I did yesterday on the subject of Didcot. I'm sorry if you've already watched it or heard it or tuned into it. I do apologise, but we are on a roll with all things Didcot, and I do need to keep getting the message out there. So bear with me 1 second while I pull this up, and I will play it for you forthwith. Just need to be in the right place, which is there, I think.
8 years since the tragic collapse at Didcot power station, in which 4 demolition workers lost their lives. And their families are still waiting to find out exactly what happened on that day. Now, there are calls for an urgent public inquiry into what's taking so long. 10 days before it was due to be demolished in February 2016, part of the site's old boiler house came down, claiming the lives of 4 men, Ken Cresswell, John Shaw, Michael Collings and Christopher Huxtable. It was 6 months before their bodies were able to be recovered from the rubble. Let's take you back to some of our reporting from that time.
At least one person has been killed this afternoon after a building collapsed at Didcot power station.
It's the end of that rectangular building. Just looks like it's crumbled away.
Police and the ambulance service are treating it as a major incident.
The integrity of the remaining building still gives us a major concern. It obviously was being prepared for demolition, so our crews are having to take real care.
You know, any other country, right, they'd be scrambling to get these men out. This is England, and look what they're doing. Nothing. We want them home. Us families are living this every day.
Every time you look at it, you just think of the poor people that were still under there. And it's just a shame there's been so much politics and bureaucratics involved to stop the process.
Just a tragic shame all round.
It's taken 200 days to find the body of the last missing worker, John Shaw. It took just a few minutes for him to leave Didcot power station for the last time.
8.5 years later, the families of those 4 men still waiting to find out what happened on that day in February 2016. Earlier this year, Sadie Cresswell, who's the daughter of Ken, spoke to us about her dad and their ongoing search for answers.
He was so funny. He was literally like, he was a family rock. He held everything together. The mischief and the fun, and him and my mum were just, they were soulmates. They were a force to be reckoned with. The house was always full of laughter when he come home on a Friday. That's what I remember the most, his love and his laugh. Yeah. It's been the worst 8 years. It's been just it happening, and then the time to get them out, that was just painful. And then now obviously it's 8 years on, we've still not got any answers. It all just adds to the pain to not even be able to say, oh, at least we got him justice. We have to just put our trust in the people of authority, which are the police, the HSE and things like that. It's just taking so long, like 8 years. It's just, oh, it's so upsetting, it's frustrating. To get some answers for him, oh my God, it'd be relief. Just some answers as to why he went to work on the 23rd of February and why he didn't come home. Just some answers on what happened. The reassurance that we do get from the police in our updates, I just hope we get the right outcome and that justice comes at the end. We don't want to move on until we've got answers, to be honest. It's answers for us as a family. It's answers for my dad for what happened. And it's answers for the demolition industry as well, so it doesn't ever happen again. It can't ever happen again. I have got hope, but it is dwindling. It's so important to keep it out there, to keep Didcot on the TV, on the radio, out in the press. We'll do anything to make sure that it is kept out there. What happened to him should always be remembered, even after justice has been or the case is resolved or whatever. They should always, always be remembered.
Sadie Cresswell, whose dad Ken was one of the 4 men killed in the collapse at Didcot Power Station back in 2016, now calls for an urgent public inquiry into why this investigation has taken so long. Joining me now is Mark Anthony, who started the petition. He's also editor of Demolition News. Morning, Mark. I just want to give you what we've got from Thames Valley Police and the Health Safety Executive. It's not long, but they say they recognise the length of time the investigation is taking and the impact it's having on the families. But they say they are continuing to investigate the circumstances of the collapse and still looking at offences of corporate manslaughter, gross negligence manslaughter and Health and Safety at Work Act offences. There is a lot of evidence to go through here, isn't there, Mark? And it is complicated. Do you think there is any justification in the length of time it's taken?
No, quite simply there isn't. If this had been a murder, a stabbing or something on the high street, a low traffic accident, this would have been resolved within a year, maybe. 8.5 years. I mean, you mentioned just before I came on here, the fact that it's 110 sleeps until Christmas. That seems a long way off. Those families have now been waiting for 3,128 days. This didn't happen on the moon. It didn't happen at the bottom of the ocean. It happened in Didcot, a very populated town. We all know exactly what happened. The evidence is there. And if there is a smoking gun, it does not take you 8.5 years to actually resolve what that is. And the problem that you've just read the latest update from Thames Valley Police and the Health and Safety Executive. They've been saying exactly the same thing on every single anniversary since the 3rd. This happened in 2016. In 2019, they said, we're investigating, keeping the families informed, and we're talking about possible manslaughter charges. They've now been saying that for 5 years. It's an absolute disgrace.
Now, you know the industry well, Mark. I guess, are there similar incidents and investigations that you can compare to that have, been resolved quicker? Or are there any others that have taken a similar length of time to 8 years?
I'm so glad you asked that, because this is the comparison between here and elsewhere.
Okay.
There was a very similar case in America about a year after Didcot. A power station collapsed, 2 men were killed. Their bodies were recovered within a month, not 6 months. And that whole thing was investigated and prosecuted and case closed within 18 months. Here in the UK, we've got Didcot that's been outstanding for 8.5 years. And in a couple of days' time, it will be the 5th anniversary of another double demolition death up at Redcar. That is still ongoing as well. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely convinced now that the police are the people that need to be investigating this. Because I understand that the police are busy. But every time there's a road traffic accident, a sexual assault, a stabbing or something like that within the area, Didcot gets pushed to the back burner. And it's been pushed to the back burner now for more than 8.5 years. And there is absolutely no sign of it coming any closer to resolution. We're in exactly the same situation today as we were at the 3-year anniversary, the 4 and the 5.
Which is agonising for the families. But in terms of the industry, Mark, would it help the industry and help protect other people to have a result as well?
The absolute truth of that is it will no longer help the UK demolition industry. At the time that Didcot came down, we were facing, because of the end of fossil fuels, we were taking down all of our old coal-fired power stations. And at the time that Didcot happened, there was another 20, 25 to come down. With the exception of one, they're all down now. But the rest of the demolition world, literally around the world, is now looking to Didcot for some advice. Because there may be something within that investigation that might be a weakness in the design of the power stations, a fundamental flaw in the methodology that the demolition contractors use. But it's still locked up in red tape 8.5 years later. At the time that Didcot happened, there was something like 1,500 fossil fuel power stations to come down around the world. We're now down to less than 1,000. So there's been 500 odd power stations have been demolished. And those guys are going to work, people like John and Chris and people like that, they're going to work in fear because there is something within that, or there could be something in that investigation that could make their job safer. But because of the intransigence of the HSE and the Thames Valley Police, we don't know what that is.
Now, this call for a public inquiry, Mark, that you're behind, you've started this petition. Some would say, if that did pick up and get taken off, that could prolong the investigation as well. Like it could contribute to the families waiting even longer, the industry waiting longer.
To be absolutely honest with you, I don't even want a public inquiry. What I actually want is for the Thames Valley Police either to state publicly, look, we've been playing with this for 8.5 years, we don't know what we're doing, or to hand it to somebody else, or to bring some resolution. I'm a journalist. I'm not interested in public inquiries and getting my names in the newspaper. All I'm interested in is for the families of those 4 men to get some sort of resolution, some sort of closure. And it should not have taken this long. And I can tell you that I know of at least one person within the demolition industry, literally within months of Didcot happening, he was approached to be an expert witness, and he declined because, in his opinion, the Thames Valley Police and the Health and Safety Executive were not equipped to deal with an investigation of this nature. And he's been proven absolutely correct. So there you are. Sorry, it was audio, but Mick says, the more I sit and listen to this, the more I'm winding myself up. To hear Sadie speak breaks my heart, not just for Ken, but all 4 of them. And yes, Red Car as well, yeah. One of my concerns with all of this is the fact that even if the police are still picking this up and putting it down, which I don't actually believe to be the case anymore, it's something that they dabble with. We'll have a look, and then there's a rape. We need to go and deal with that. We'll have a dabble with it. There's a stabbing. We'll have to go and deal with that. I don't believe there's the dedication. And whereas the families of the 4 guys will be living with this every single day. I mentioned my dad earlier. My dad's been gone for just over 2 years now. Not a day goes by. My dad died in, he was of an age, and, he'd been ill for a while. We'd seen it coming. We're largely prepared for it, not entirely, but largely prepared for it. But every single day I find some way, or my dad finds some way, to worm his way into my brain and remind me that he'd been here. You imagine that magnified by 100 because, A, the people that died at Didcot did not deserve to die, but also because you have no idea how or why they died. My dad had COPD. He had cancer. Ultimately, he died of pneumonia. He had got a dose of pneumonia, and he passed away as a result of pneumonia. And I've got a death certificate that states that in black and white. I can't say it's pleasant reading, but at least I know exactly what happened. Sadie and Tia and the relatives of the guys that died at Didcot haven't even been given that. They've been given nothing at all. And Mick, I have to admit, I do find those interviews quite hard, because I do find myself getting very, very wound up and angry. And frankly, the BBC were kind of doing us a favour. The BBC, God bless them, criticise them all you will, but at least they are still willing to cover the story and everything else. I'd love to sit in a room with the Commissioner of Thames Valley Police, if you're watching, whenever you're ready, and the head of the HSE, the same again, if you're watching, whenever you're ready, cameras on or cameras off, I don't give a toss. But I'd love for me to be able to express on behalf of the families and on behalf of myself and on behalf of Mick and anybody else that knew those 4 guys, my anger. But I can't even do that because they don't want anything to do with it. So, as it stands at the moment, it's 8.5 years, or more than 8.5 years, since Didcot happened. By 23rd of February 2025, are we expecting any resolution? No. Are we expecting them to send out the same statement that they've been sending out for the last 5-6 years? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. I think it's an absolute disgrace. So, as I say, my apologies for playing you audio on a video show, but I think, there was a good reason for it. But I apologise nonetheless. Anyway, I've got a morning monologue to do. So I am going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to roll our end of show stinger in just a second. Oh, no, I can't do that because I haven't resolved this. Nobody got it today. I'll tell you now, it's one of them. That is a Venieri 10.63C. So I get the points, which means I am now just, I think, 3 points behind Dan Cullen. Let's have a look. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 12 points, and I've got 1, 2. I've got 9 points. So, Dan, I'm coming for you. Am I going to give myself a prize? Probably not. Even if we end up on equal terms, I think he gets the prize, but you get the idea. Anyway, I'm going to roll my leap gazelle like, stick around, stay safe, look after yourself. All the stuff that I say around about this time. If you do have the time and the inclination, however, please stick around, because I would like to share with you my morning monologue immediately after I've checked the chat. Peter McKenna says, it was at the tip of my tongue. Yes, I'm sure it was, but well done. Right, okay, it's this. I'm going to start my morning monologue today with a question. Is it possible to be loyal to a single brand of construction equipment? There are examples, of course. JC Balls, famously been a loyal JCB customer for decades and has built a very respectable company on the back of it. But in an age when innovation is perhaps more rapid, But in an age when innovation is perhaps more rapid than ever, can you genuinely pin your company colours to a single equipment mast? Well, let's discuss. Loyalty to a single equipment brand is driven by a complex mix of trust, convenience, and long-term partnerships. However, such loyalty is not without its challenges. As construction projects become more demanding and technology evolves, businesses often find themselves weighing the advantages of staying with a familiar brand versus the potential benefits of exploring alternative options. So first off, I'm going to look at the potential advantages of a single source of supply. And one of the most compelling reasons for sticking with a single brand is the relationship built up over time with local dealers and service technicians. Construction obviously is a tough, time-sensitive business, and having a dependable, long-term partner can be invaluable. A contractor's relationship with their local equipment dealer goes beyond simple transactions. It does genuinely become a partnership. The local dealer knows the company's needs, the specific equipment requirements, and how to offer tailored solutions. Consider the scenario when a piece of heavy equipment breaks down mid-project. A dealer with whom the business has a strong relationship will likely prioritise them, ensuring quicker access to replacement parts, technicians, or possibly even a replacement machine. That quick turnaround reduces costly downtime and enhances operational efficiency. The service technician who has worked on your fleet for years knows your machines inside out. Familiarity with your equipment's quirks and history can result in faster, more efficient repairs and maintenance. Moreover, established dealers often offer financing, extended warranties, and flexible terms that help reduce the financial burden of equipment ownership. They can negotiate deals, offer fleet discounts, and perhaps even throw in service packages that new relationships may not yet offer. Another potential advantage of sticking to a single brand is the commonality of spare parts across different machines. Don't know what happened to my voice there. Brands tend to maintain consistent component design across their equipment lines, which simplifies maintenance. For a construction business running a mixed fleet, dealing with multiple brands can result in a logistical nightmare. Parts for different machines from various manufacturers might not be interchangeable, resulting in a more complex and costly inventory of spare parts. Brand loyalty brings with it a level of familiarity that boosts operational efficiency. Using the same brand over years means operators know how the machines respond, their strengths, and their quirks. When operators become familiar with a specific brand's design, controls, and ergonomics, there is a natural boost in productivity. Loyalty to a single brand should also give companies leverage when negotiating new equipment purchases or leasing contracts. Dealers value long-term relationships, and manufacturers reward loyal customers with better deals, including discounts on equipment purchases or preferential leasing terms. So far, so good. But what about the potential disadvantages of brand loyalty and a single supplier strategy? One of the significant downsides of brand loyalty in the construction equipment industry is the potential to miss out on innovations offered by other manufacturers. The pace of innovation in construction machinery has accelerated, especially with the adoption of automation, electrification, connectivity. A contractor loyal to one brand may find that while their manufacturer offers dependable machines, other brands are pushing the envelope in terms of advanced technology, fuel efficiency, or other unique features. Brand loyalty can also lead to reduced flexibility. Construction companies, especially smaller firms, need to be agile and adaptable. If a project requires a particular type of machine or tool that your chosen brand doesn't offer, you might be left in a tough position. In such cases, a brand loyal company may need to either rent from a competitor or make do with less than optimal equipment. Despite all I said about fleet discounts previously, loyalty to one brand might actually mean paying premium prices for equipment simply because of the name. To remain loyal to a single brand probably requires you to work with a major manufacturer that has a truly comprehensive range. And those brands often command higher prices due to their reputation. If you're locked into a single brand, you might overlook more cost-effective solutions from lesser-known manufacturers that could offer similar performance and durability at a lower price. In addition, even for routine maintenance and service and repairs, branded parts, consumables, and dealership labour are generally more expensive than aftermarket alternatives or independent service providers. Loyalty can sometimes lead to complacency, both for the brand and for the customer. When a company is confident that its customers will remain loyal, there may be less incentive to innovate, improve service, or offer competitive pricing. For the construction company, loyalty might also breed a sense of stagnation in its own operations. By not exploring other brands, the company might not be aware of superior options that could optimize operations, improve safety, or reduce costs. Sticking to the status quo out of convenience or tradition could result in missed opportunities for growth and efficiency. Ultimately, brand loyalty comes with undeniable advantages. Strong relationships with dealers, consistent service, commonality of parts, and operator familiarity. Those factors lead to operational efficiencies, reduced downtime, and cost savings. However, there are also significant downsides to consider, such as missed innovation, reduced flexibility, and potentially higher costs. Ultimately, the decision to remain loyal to a single brand or explore multiple options is one that requires careful consideration of the specific needs of the construction or demolition business. In an industry where margins are thin and the pace of technological advancement is fast, businesses must balance the comfort and security of loyalty with the potential opportunities that come with diversification. Just one other point on this, and I'll throw this over to the chat. But I'm sure you've all heard the term FOMO, fear of missing out. I wonder if that will ultimately kill brand loyalty. Imagine you're committed to a single brand. Going back to JC Balls. JC Balls were very committed to JCB and have been for decades. But imagine if you're committed to JCB or Komatsu or Caterpillar, Hitachi, whatever it might be, and another brand makes some giant innovation or technological leap, and your chosen brand hasn't caught up or won't catch up for another couple of years. What do you do then? What do you do? So I'm going to throw this over to the chat. Thank you very much indeed for listening. What have we got? What have we got in the chat here? Okay, we'll go back to Didcot, as we often do. You said Terry was asked to be an expert witness. I know Peter Hill was asked also. We had a long talk when I advised him not to get involved. I don't know who asked him, but I'm so glad he didn't take it on in any way. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because not that I don't think Terry Cornby is the type of person to worry about his own reputation. But you imagine being an expert witness and you know, you're being presented with presumably you're being presented with findings, and you can see that this thing is being dragged out. And are they concentrating on the right thing? One of the things that came out when they've issued statements in the past is, you know, they've got thousands of tons of twisted steel to go through looking for a smoking gun. But they've also said, I'm fairly sure they said they have more than 1,000 witness statements. Now, I was at Didcot during the demolition. I went up there 2 or 3 times. I reckon there were 30, 40 guys working on the demolition. So who are the others? Okay, you may bring in some of the people that were responsible for the overall maintenance of the building. I don't suppose anybody that was involved in the construction of the building would still be active, because it was built, 60s? So 50 years later, are you still going to get expert witnesses that built the plant? Probably not. So where are all these hundreds and potentially thousands of other witness statements coming from. And I can tell you also, when I went up there the day after it had happened, the number of local people that were looking for their 15 minutes of fame, and and I was, I followed a few of them onto camera. Local people, we've been watching this, and we know it was an accident waiting to happen. We could tell from where we were this was an accident waiting to happen. Well, for one thing, if it was an accident waiting to happen, why are you only saying it now? Why didn't you report it beforehand? And if you're a local person, the chances of you being a local person living near Didcot, watching the demolition, and the fact that you're also a structural engineer seems highly, highly unlikely. So are some of those witness statements of any use? That would be my question. Jim Turner says, even JC Balls have to deviate from JCB as they don't manufacture everything they need. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, we think back over the years. I mean, was it Blackwell? Blackwell used to run a lot of Caterpillar scrapers, and they were 99.9% CAT. Can you afford to do that these days? I'm sure the major manufacturers would be very keen for you to do so, but can you do that? Should you do that is more to the point. To be honest, I never worked with anyone who stuck with one brand. It was all down to cost and whatever the deal could best suited to them. Funnily enough, let me just rack my brains. Going back to, obviously, Rye Demolition no longer exists, but for many, many, many years, Rye Demolition were strictly Hitachi. They had a very, very good relationship with David Hearn, the sales manager or whatever it was he was there, had a very, very good relationship there, and they were Hitachi through and through. David Hearn left. If I remember rightly, I'm fairly sure Rye bought a Lugong or two, and then when they switched over to HVO Fuel, they went Caterpillar. So that relationship, once David Hearn was out of the picture, that relationship just kind of broke down. But for years and years, they were very, very, very loyal to a single brand. And I do wonder about maybe demolition is a little more, maybe you're more able to do that. You think about Armac. Armac is predominantly, I wouldn't say exclusively, but they're predominantly Caterpillar. They have specific choices on attachments and that kind of thing. Mick Norton is here. A late good morning, or good morning to you, sir. I will add that Peter was involved in the insurance industry. Okay, bloody good eyesight. I got to say, yeah. If anybody ever actually went to Didcot, it's a power station, so you couldn't get near or by it. And the local houses were a long way away. If you look at any of the photographs taken of the cooling towers, some of them are actually taken from the nearest back garden. I know because I've been in it, and it's quarter of a mile away. Are you really watching the demolition of and thinking, yes, my superior knowledge, I'm an armchair in structural engineer, I can tell that this is going to go awry? Of course you can't. I have to admit, I got really bloody annoyed while I was up at Didcot for that. I'm not an expert. I don't profess to be. I was there basically to speak up for the demolition industry and the procedures that would have been gone through and that kind of thing. But to have local people, and literally sort of elbowing their way to the front. Oh, yes, I've been watching this intently. I used to work there and I've been watching it intently. And literally from the day it started, I can tell it's an accident waiting to happen. No, you couldn't. You couldn't even see it, pillock. So yes, that's about that. I think. If anybody's got anything else to offer, would I necessarily put all my eggs into a single basket, equipment wise? Not demolition and construction equipment wise, I wouldn't. And yet I do when it comes to my own equipment. Apple, Elgato, DJI. Do tend to do that a lot. And funnily enough, some of the things that I was saying there, and obviously I wrote that, so, some of the things I was saying there, things like Apple, once you know how an iPhone works, you know how an iPad works, you know how an iMac works, you just have that familiarity. Exactly the same with DJI. I think we've had 4 DJI drones, and I'm in the market for the new one, the DJI Neo. I'm not going to put the begging bowl out, but it's still open if anyone's interested. And despite the fact that the DJI Neo doesn't actually require a control system, it's self-guided and stuff, it will be familiar. The same thing will be exactly the same. I'll press a button, it will make the same sounds and it will do the same thing. What the F is an iMac? It's a laptops from Apple tend to be called MacBooks, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and a desktop Apple is an iMac. Yeah. I didn't name it. I'm sure that was probably a Mr. Jobs or Mr. Ives, Sir Johnny. But no, it's an iMac. That's what I'm looking at right now. With the M1 chip. I don't know what that means, but that's what I've got. Anyway, people, go learn something new here every day. Yeah, well, I've learned all about yak milk. Would yak milk being yellow put me off? No, it would not. I drink it straight from the beast. That's a lie, because I reckon yaks smell pretty bloody bad. Mick Norton says, Bullivant's piling rig designers would always seek out a 360-based equipment that best suited a particular application. Yeah, I think one of the things with demolition, which is where you're slightly different, is and going back to RMAC. RMAC have a very specific need of their machines. They have high reach machines, but not super high. A lot of their work tends to be in bridges and that kind of thing. And so, they have a very specific need to suit a specific application. So I think the very fact that they've got a long-term relationship with the likes of Finning, I think to communicate that, we want it the same as that one we had 2 years ago. I think that makes perfect sense. Chris Ford, iMac. Yes, it's not a hair removal cream. It is an iMac. Imagine a dyslexic digger. What, a JBC? Or an XGMC or something. Stay safe, fellas. I'm off for a double-double. Oh, Mick, don't do that. That's like a dagger to the heart, that is. Weighed myself this morning, and I'm the lightest I've been for about 3 years. Blood sugars are under control, and then he's going off for pie and mash. And the temptation to jump on a train and go and do the same, you wouldn't believe. I already know, come Las Vegas, the wheels will fall off because, can you eat healthily in America? Not really. Can you eat healthily in Las Vegas? Not a bloody hope. So, yes. Chris Ford says, have a double for me, Mick. Knew that would make you happy. Mick Norton, for dynamic compaction, there was no 360 that beat the old Ackerman. Yeah. Oh, Ackerman. Just trying to remember, there was a guy. Who was the guy? Can't remember. I can see his face. There was a big, tall ginger guy who used to work for him. Can't remember his name. It may come to me. It'll be after the show anyway. But that's an hour. Enough. Go and do your day. Mick, despite the fact that it's a dagger to my heart, please enjoy your double-double. Have some chili vinegar for me, would you, my friend? And please, don't be one of those people that turns your pie upside down. Oh, man, that annoys me. That annoys me almost as much as people going into a pie mash shop and ordering gravy. Oh, the anger. Right, enough. Go. I'll be back tomorrow for more of the same. And we're on the countdown. Now, in actual fact, I tell you now, tomorrow's show, number 800, but we're on the countdown for my 10 days away. So, be here or be square or something. See you tomorrow.